levels. It touched an intraday high of 66,897 levels and an intraday low of 66,431 levels. Now, Sensex Nifty on the other hand ended 97 points higher at 19,778 levels. It touched an intraday high of 19,825 and an intraday low of 19,716. The broader markets too, Shweta, were outperformers today and they managed to end in the green.
Okay, and what sectors were in focus? What stocks were in focus?
So Shweta, among sectors, FMCG and capital goods managed to gain over 1%. Among individual stocks, Larsen & Toubro was a top gainer at 3.56% return. Cipla followed at about 2.3%. ITC was up 1.8%. On the other side, Bajaj Finance was the top loser in today's session. It was down about 1.74%, followed by Bajaj Fin, which was down 1.37%, Mahindra & Mahindra, which was down 1.27%.
Okay, Cipla is up. We're not. Are the results out? We're tracking the quarterly earnings, of course, for all the major companies, and we're looking at the results that have been released. We are going to have Ambareesh joining us very, very shortly. But before that happens, I suppose PNB came out with their quarterly earnings. The stock ended 5% up.
So, stock was trading 5% higher in intraday trade, but it closed 4% higher by the time it closed. So, PNB, despite a fourfold jump in profits, managed to meet analyst estimates. Now, net profit on a year-on-year basis was up 307% from 1,225 crore to 308 crore. Net interest income for the company surged from 7,542 crore to 9,504 crore, which is a 26% jump. Asset quality also improved for the bank with a gross non-performing asset ratio was down 347 basis points from 11.2% in Q1 FY23 to 7.73%. Meanwhile, NPAs was down 230 basis points from 4.28% in Q1 FY23 to 1.98%.
All right, and another stock that we are tracking is that of Bajaj Finance. I'm looking at the stock at the moment. It closed 1.74% lower. This, of course, comes on the back of the quarterly results that were out. It is surprising, but because the results were better than expected. 24,
which is about a 32% growth on a year-on-year basis. Now, net interest income 6,640 crore to 8,390 crore. Bajaj Finance asset under management grew by a whopping 32% to 2,70,097 crore from 2,04,018 crore. Now, the company recorded its highest ever quarterly increase in AUM of 22,718 crore. So, all in all, a good set of numbers coming in from Bajaj Finance.
All right, Ambareesh Baliga, who's an independent markets expert, joining us this afternoon. Good afternoon, sir. Thanks for taking time out. I want to particularly begin by asking about Bajaj Finance. Numbers are better than expected. What then explains the stock, tanking by as much as 1.6%?
Numbers surely were better. I mean, whether you talk of the net profit, that was better than estimates. The new loans booked, I think it's the highest ever. AUM is up about 32%, but I think what spooked the street possibly is the net interest margins, which is NIMs. That's declined to 9.95% versus 10.34% Y-on-Y, and it was 10.11 Q-on-Q. So I think this is what must have spooked the markets to a certain extent, because of which we saw post the results, we saw a decent correction.
All right. Among other earnings that we're tracking is that of Cipla. The numbers are out. Are they in line with estimates?
In fact, the numbers are better than estimates, and because of which just post the earnings we saw a spike, and possibly tomorrow we should see a much better move in Cipla.
Okay. I also want to quickly go back to PNB and earnings for banking stocks, and my colleague Suyash was here with us. We continue to track Nifty Bank. The performance has been better. June quarter ended with profitability. There's a steady decline in NPAs. All of that means that the banking sector at large is looking robust.
So Shweta, most banks have so far, at least the numbers that have coming out, they have reported a robust set of numbers. Profitability has increased in double digits, and even the asset quality has improved. Even in the recent rally in the last 1 month or so, banking stocks have done really well, and especially the PSU banking space. They have been the major driver of growth for the market in the last 1 month or so.
Okay, I want to touch a little bit more on banking stocks, Ambareesh, before we move on to another, other companies that have come up with their quarterly earnings. And banking stocks particularly, it appears that the crisis that was brewing in the US, in the Europe, and the turmoil that it could spread to India hasn't really happened. The banking crisis hasn't touched Indian shores, and the sector continues to look strong.
Absolutely, because I mean our banking system is completely insulated from whatever is happening in the US, and in the last couple of quarters we have seen steady improvement in the balance sheet as well as the earnings as far as the PSU banks go. But then we've also seen these stocks moving up decently well in the last 12 to 15 months. A couple of them have become multi-baggers, in the sense at least 2x or 2.5x. Because of which, despite these good results, I don't see a major move from here as far as the PSU banking space is concerned. But if you're talking of PNB, whose numbers just came, I mean, that's been a stark underperformer among the large banks, large PSU banks. So because of these numbers, we could see a decent spike in PNB. And more importantly, the CEO, also has mentioned that they are looking to double the profitability in FY24. So that's a very positive statement coming from him. So I think this is one stock which can move up among the PSU banking space.
Okay. Would it then be right to say that banking stocks, and specifically, public sector banks, have outperformed other sectors in Q1? Would that be a right assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. But then we should also look at the way they have moved up. Because of which I'm saying that they may not really outperform from here on. Although I'm not giving a sell call, but I surely will not go out and buy. Across the PSU banking stocks.
Okay. So if one was to look at entering the market and make fresh positions, what stocks should they be vying for?
At this point of time, I feel the market is overpriced. I was looking at Nifty 18,800 as more or less fully priced. And from there, we have seen 1,000 point plus sort of a rally. So at these levels, I'm finding the markets a bit too expensive. I'm not really going out and buying anything much at this point of time. In fact, I would look to book profits. I'm surely not saying go short, but I would surely look at booking profits.
Okay. I think Suyash has a question for you.
So Tech Mahindra's results have just come out, and
right.
We have seen a profit decline of 38%.
Absolutely.
So most tech companies have given subdued set of results, but Nifty IT has still bounced back in the last month or so. So why is the market optimistic about IT stocks?
See, IT stocks, if you're talking about Tech Mahindra, yes, clearly it's a miss on estimates. So I think we'll see a correction as far as Tech Mahindra is concerned. But IT stocks overall, people may be looking at it, basically because of the underperformance which we have seen in the last 9 to 12 months. And there's an expectation that possibly over the next 1 or 2 quarters, things should start looking up for the tech sector as such, because of the sort of order flows. So possibly, the next 1 or 2 quarters could be a good buying opportunity in technology. And I think some of the early birds have already gotten, because of which we have seen some amount of move in this sector.
Okay, let's quickly run us through the numbers, Suyash. How have the numbers come in and how they're looking for Tech Mahindra?
So Tech Mahindra declared its numbers just recently. 38% decline in consolidated net profit for the company. The profit figure stood at 692.5 crore against 1,117 crore in the previous quarter. So revenue for the company is down 4.1% on a quarter-on-quarter basis. It came in at 13,159 crore versus 13,718 crore. EBIT margin, EBIT stood at 891.4 crore from 1,530 crore in the previous quarter. Margin declined 440 basis points to 6.8% from 11.2% in the previous quarter.
Ambareesh, these are some very staggering, difficult numbers to digest coming from Tech Mahindra's stable. How do you explain these numbers?
No, clearly there has been a pressure as far as margins are concerned, because the costs have gone up. Order flows haven't been too great, and even the order flows which have been there, the margins are lower. So I think this will continue at least for a quarter or two more. It's only post that I think one should really take a view. But like I said, some of the early birds have started getting into some of the tech stocks, especially stocks like TCS, because of which we have seen the index holding on.
All right, and another stock story that we're tracking is that of BPCL, whose numbers have also just come out. Could you quickly run us through how numbers are stacking up, Ambareesh?
I think BPCL numbers have been, quite good. If you look at both the EBITDA as well as, the gross margins and the net margins, clearly it's a beat on the estimates. Because Y on Y, clearly it's extremely good sort of numbers. Like for example, EBITDA numbers, the margins is about 12.33%. This was about 8.36% just a quarter back, whereas the estimates were closer to about 11.5–12%.
All right, what are the big other earnings that we're tracking, Suyash, before I let you go? What are the big other companies that you are tracking this afternoon?
So Shweta, Axis Bank results are due. They generally come after the market hours, so we can expect them any time now. You know, that's
Dr.
one of
Reddy is awaited.
Dr. Reddy's results actually just came out, and if you'd give me a moment, I'll just run you through the numbers.
Absolutely. Ambareesh, do you have the numbers for us as far as Dr. Reddy's is concerned?
No, Dr. Reddy's, I don't have the numbers.
Don't have the numbers.
Profit jumped 34.7% to 1,402 crore from 1,041 crore in the year ago period. Revenue jumped 4% to 6,738 crore. EBITDA jumped 28% to 2,137 crore. Now the margin expanded by 590 basis points, Shweta, from 25.8% to 31.7%.
Okay, the margins are looking good. I'm looking at the expectations here and reporting an 18.2% year-on-year growth in consolidated net profit for the quarter ending June is way higher than what many polls had estimated. Consolidated revenue also up. Things looking good for Dr. Reddy's, Ambareesh.
Yeah, absolutely. I think these numbers are clearly a beat on the expectation. And if you're talking about the pharma pack overall, there's a very clear turnaround. I mean, after 18–24 months of underperformance. So I think this is the time to still get into this space. The pharma space, and among them, clearly the leaders. You have Dr. Reddy's, Sun Pharma, even Cipla with the numbers which have come out. I think all these could be bought.
Okay, and so what's your position like on pharma stocks?
Pharma stocks, I would say that one should have at least a weightage of about 15 to 18% of the portfolio in pharma. Because if you're talking about the next year and a half, we should again see some sort of outperformance from this sector.
All right, Ambareesh, thanks very much for joining us with your inputs on that story. We will, of course, keep bringing you all the stock-specific updates with numbers as we track quarterly earning results through this week and the coming week ahead. But moving on for now. BYJU'S continue to be in focus a month after firm's investor Prosus resigned from BYJU'S board. Prosus has now said that BYJU'S regularly disregarded advice and recommendations related to strategic, operational, legal and corporate governance matters when its member was in the board. Also, another investor, Peak XV, which is formerly called Sequoia Capital, said that it resigned from the board due to BYJU'S inability to influence the management. So the board member from Sequoia could not influence the management of the edtech firm to improve their compliance and governance norms, and hence why they resigned. Now those are some very serious allegations that BYJU'S will have to counter. These are specifically difficult to tide over for Biju Ravindran. Amid all of this comes the news that Biju Ravindran in fact broke down in April when a probe agency raided its Bengaluru office, linking the startup with possible foreign exchange violations. A lot of issues that Biju will have to recuperate over. But more importantly, financials aside, it is an issue of image. BYJU'S seem to have an image problem, which is only worsening from here on. Krishna Kumar joining us in the studio. Krishna, it is an image problem for BYJU'S that Biju Ravindran will have to tide over. Lots of stories coming on and a slew of stories. Let's go after them one by one. Number one, to begin with, former board members who are investors currently in BYJU'S saying that Biju Ravindran disregarded us.
Right, and repeatedly so at that.
Repeatedly so,
So,
absolutely.
in a board of around 6 people, which includes 3 of Baiju Ravindran's family, including himself, which is Baiju Ravindran, Riju Ravindran, his brother, and Baiju Ravindran's wife, Divya Gokulnath, you have 3 others representatives on that board, and that is one representative from Peak XV Partners, formerly known as Sequoia Capital, and then you have a representative from Prosus, which is the Netherlands-based investor in BYJU'S, and then you have a representative from Chang Zuckerberg Initiative, which is Zuckerberg's wife's initiative. So these 3 board members, all 3 of them resigned in the month of June. And when they had resigned, BYJU'S had even tried to sort of, paper over it by saying that, actually their shareholding went below the critical limit, the threshold limit for a board seat, and that's the reason why they're not part of the board and all of that. But now, a month down the line, for the first time ever, you have Prosus and all Prosus officially going on record to say the fact that, we ourselves wanted to pull our representative back because our representative made it clear that regularly that their suggestions for compliance as well as governance of BYJU'S, how the company is run, the suggestions given by Prosus's representative on the board was regularly disregarded. That's the word that they use. And also now, as that news came out, there was also news coming out that the same was the case with Peak XV Partners as well.
Absolutely.
So it's very clear that this tells you about the past of BYJU'S, even as it tries to build a new present and future, where it has its board advisory council that will consist of Rajneesh Kumar, former SBI chief, and you also have Mohandas Pai. We thought that when that news came out, that looked like a serious move when they said that this board advisory committee that advises Baiju Ravindran, the chief of BYJU'S, will be consisting of independent directors on the board, and these names, these big names, gave a lot of credibility.
Absolutely.
But what has been happening at BYJU'S so far, when that story comes out, why do so many credible people on the board resign? And bear in mind, you're talking about other pieces of news. Their auditor resigns, Deloitte as well. How come so many people resigned? And BYJU'S kept saying that there was technicality that really led to all of these things. So.
And it's like odds are stacking up against BYJU'S one after the other. You have one story and it's barely out there. The next story pops up. So you have Sequoia Capital, currently Peak XV, which also says, and I quote, that the reporting structure at BYJU'S, the governance structure did not sufficiently evolve for a company of that scale. Essentially saying that although the company became big, it was functioning in a manner like a small company does, perhaps not able to manage or micromanaging a very big company of this nature. And so these 2 former board members, companies which are currently invested in BYJU'S, coming out to say that we were not heard, hence our board member resigned, is a big bummer. And as I said, an image problem. Another image problem that Baiju Ravindran will have to deal up with, and we don't know if it's true or not, but we are given to understand on the day when BYJU'S was raided, the company's Bengaluru office was raided, Baiju Ravindran, who was not in India at that point in time, trying to get more investors on board, actually was found to be crying on a call. All in all, breaking down with what was happening for the company against the company.
Right, those are details that are coming out, Shweta,
in the media.
And again, that really paints a picture of how things have been. In a sense, it sort of reiterates what could have been. At the end of the day, Baiju Ravindran is human. When a company goes through it, especially after the highs that BYJU'S went through, that's what it really makes the story more stark. You're talking about it as a beacon of hope for many things at the time of darkness, during the time of pandemic, when BYJU'S emerged as this huge beacon of hope for providing education to children, for providing employment to so many people, and also really taking the India startup story to another level. The first ever, the most valuable company, the most valuable startup ever in India, beating the likes of Flipkart, other Indian companies that have been built over there, and multiple times. It's a decacorn, plus $13 billion, at some stage of valuation. So it clearly, when you fall from those highs, I'm sure taking those highs is going to be difficult for Baiju Ravindran, for anybody in his place. But what will at this stage is important for BYJU'S is that there has been a past, and that past has shown itself in the way the reality has manifested itself. There were clearly governance issues. Peak Express says it was run like a real small company, like a mom and pop shop, and whereas it became this huge decacorn
mammoth company.
Mammoth company. You have Prosus saying that you have these people on the board to give you the suggestions, and you regularly disregard these suggestions, and you run it like your own family company. Really adding on to what Peak Express is saying. There are 3 people of the family on the board. There are 3 other outsiders. The 3 outsiders are ignored, and the 3 family members remain on the board. That really tells you what was going on at BYJU'S. And now that they have to take accountability, who else is accountable? There's 3 people on the board, all of them are from Bajaj Ravindran's family. They really have to take accountability, and they have put in place this board advisory committee. I would be really interesting to see how soon this board advisory committee to the CEO and the chief of BYJU'S gets finalized, how well it operates. Can it now be a completely new beginning for the way the board advises? Because so far it seems like the board is like, for the sake, it's like a paper tiger. The board just says what it wants to, and Bajaj Ravindran and family do what they want to. Can that change?
Apparently, it's already changing. Come to think of it, because just yesterday we were discussing news around the financials of BYJU'S, which continue to remain bleak at this point in time, but the term loan B, amounting to $1.2 billion, was being renegotiated. The terms were being renegotiated, and Rajneesh Kumar is said to be playing a crucial role. He comes with ample banking experience and is said to be playing a crucial role. So as far as financials is concerned, perhaps BYJU'S is turning around, and this is the opportunity, Krishna, to turn around.
Absolutely. And add to that the fact that they have started shutting down some offices and extra office space. They're being more financially more prudent. So it is certain couple of good decisions have come out ever since we've heard about that board advisory committee consisting of Mohandas Pai and Rajneesh Kumar. And of course, Rajneesh Kumar being involved in the negotiations with the existing creditors is also good news. If that entire $1.2 billion loan is where this entire thing started erupting. So if they can find a fix for that, that really paves a good way forward for them to fix other problems that are affecting them. The problem is, Shweta, even last week there were images of a BYJU'S employee demanding an explanation.
I was about to come to that.
From her
what
manager.
What a damning video,
and
Krishna.
That video also sort of made me think all over again as to what is going on. You just had the entire episode of employees' Provident Fund not being credited, the employer's contribution towards their employees for their Provident Fund not being credited, and finally them coming out and claiming, saying, no, now we have put in all that money, now we're safe. Okay, now we're thinking, at least for the employees still left at BYJU'S after all the sets of firings and job cuts, life will sort of start resuming normalcy. But it doesn't look like that in that video when they demanded when that girl, a young employee. And the worst part is, Shweta, that what my heart went out was that all of them are young, first-time employees, first jobs, probably campus placements. These people who don't have prior experience of dealing with the big bad world of companies and corporates, they are the ones who get affected the most. One is that my heart goes out to all those working for BYJU'S. As of today, I'm really hoping that their life gets sorted going forward. And of course, my heart goes out to all the customers of BYJU'S, all the mummies and daddies and the parents and the grandparents.
Putting very hard-earned money,
putting their hard-earned money to educate their children. Many thought that this is the one short way of ensuring that the children get a good education and ensure that they do well for themselves going forward. So my heart goes out to all of them. Even as we discuss all the inside wranglings, the management and the governance of BYJU'S, I really hope that there is some finality given both for the customers of BYJU'S and the employees of BYJU'S.
All right. We are, of course, hoping that it is going to be normal again. Normalcy comes back to BYJU'S for its employees, for its customers at large, and, of course, for the future of Indian startup. BYJU'S being one of the most valued Indian startups as of today. Normalcy, hopefully, will come back very soon. We will come back to that story. But shifting focus now, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India is pitching for regulations on artificial intelligence. TRAI has recommended that setting up an independent statutory artificial intelligence and data authority body is important to regulate and advise all AI-related sectors. Now, this comes at a time, remember, when AI is impacting just everything. Telecom to banking, financial services, healthcare, transportation, you name it. Therefore, a need for a more holistic regulatory approach. That, of course, is what TRAI, the Telecom Authority, is saying. We don't know how sector is perceiving it. Joining us to talk more about the impact of that important recommendation from TRAI is Nandan Mishra, who's the founder and CEO of Algo8. Nandan, appreciate you taking time out this afternoon. I want to understand, how do you read these developments, especially the call for a regulatory framework for all sectors where AI is made to use or put to use or made useful?
Shweta, I think it is timely, it is significant, and it is visionary. So these three terms actually, because timely, because as you said, it's affecting everything now. In the entire value chain that we have around us, it's affecting everything. So now we need a framework that can at least tell us what are the risks with various applications of AI in each field, and based on those risks, regulate them, have a more of a guardrail approach around things, and not have a very strict approach around things, such that there is more self-correction and the community and the landscape overall improves through these regulations, because there has to be now rules around this playground. So it is very timely, and yeah, that's what I feel.
Okay, very timely. And what sort of regulation are we looking at? I mean, TRAI, of course, saying that this goes beyond telecom. What sort of, and you work closely with AI, and you've been in development of AI, and I have had an opportunity to talk to you when ChatGPT was just being launched. I remember about 8 months ago, I got you on a podcast for News9. Since then, we've come very far. We see AI being put to use in literally every sector now, and the sky's the limit, and so from here, what sort of regulation do you envisage for these sectors?
See, I think generative AI was the inflection point of AI becoming a part of our life, or it was already there, but it was somewhere behind. Now it's the mainstream. It is going to be the platform on which we are going to innovate. So I think responsible AI, if you think about the principles of responsible AI, first is fairness, non-discrimination, transparency, accountability, and explainability. Why the AI is saying this, and can we hold it accountable? Then privacy and data protection, security, safety, human control and autonomy, then the environmental impact of the entire thing, collaboration and kind of global cooperation on it. That's what we are pushing at G20, and the social benefit, because it should not be for by and of the world who have the money and they just want to build it and automate everything. So the social benefits of that as well. So these are certain 10, 11 principles on which responsible AI functions. And if you look at responsible AI, what we are going to now unlock is essentially we're going to categorize each of these and then basically build onto it. There will be a multi-stakeholder board. So as you said, the AIDAI, the authority, will set up a multiple stakeholder board where it will have stakeholders from tech, it will have it from startups, from industry, from various users, and we'll try and basically bring in the concerns and interests and then build these regulations. So that's how it's going to look like.
Right. I had a question. One is that when you're saying that you're doing it using AI the right way, it's reminding me of something like ethical hacking. So you could have in a way going forward ethical AI stamped products and services that are being offered, like organic fruits and vegetables, if I may.
So are you saying that ethical hacking? So how can we draw parallels with
and also take lessons as well, both?
Oh, definitely. So I think the common principles of ethics remain the same, and as I told you, those 10 tenets, so you can always think about, and that could be an alternate framework. Having said that, ethical hacking is more of an intrusive and it's actually much more aggressive thing that has to be controlled, and the cyber networks are regulated based on that. But when you look at AI and ethical AI, the principles are more perceptive in nature. They are going to affect the entire system. So we have to think from multiple perspectives and bring them in.
The reason why I'm asking is that definitely in the US Senate, for example, there is a latest report that said that you can use AI to create bioweapons and you can create atomic bombs if need be, right? So it can go into the hands of the wrong actors, using AI. So AI as an overall threat to humanity is where the debate is at this stage. Apart from the fact that it takes away jobs and other stuff, like in Comic-Con in San Diego, there was a lot of talk about voice artists voicing their opinions against AI because AI is taking away the voice artist jobs and all these comic books and graphic novels that we witness. Now, while taking away jobs is one thing, taking away lives is another thing altogether. That's what AI is capable of, and hence I'm talking about ethical AI.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
I think wherever AI can intervene with defense, intervene with those areas, I think the regulation framework that you are suggesting makes much more sense. But when it comes to automation and lack of So the existing value chain being disrupted with AI, I think we need to very carefully look at reskilling and build, because see,
it's happening because there needs to be a unity in terms of the content that North and South watches. I think right now they're in silos completely. So I
coming out of those silos,
Yeah.
I think from what we saw with Family Man, with Farzi, they're coming out of silos, and
Yes.
there's a larger integration. I think both of them realizing that they cannot operate in silos anymore.
Yeah.
You can't have a South audience and a North audience. You have to have audience watching from both these places if you are to make up for the money that you put into making these shows.
And also leverage India.
And
We are
leverage
big
India.
India. We
Absolutely.
are big enough to have this kind of an audience. So why not make content that
So
can reach
no
both
more
audiences?
Southern stars or Northern stars
Indian
anymore.
stars.
Indian stars. But talking about Indian stars and the numbers are lovely.
Yeah.
They are to the tune of 37.1 million, 28.6 million. What I'm trying to refer to is, why is it then that the average revenue per user continues to remain so low and abysmal? And you have a Hotstar that is struggling, you have a Netflix which is struggling, you have Amazon Prime trying to do its level best. India, a very competitive market,
Right.
large audience base, but OTT platforms continue to struggle.
Right. Indians love news. Indians love, all kinds of Indians watch news all the time. They love consuming news. But does enough revenue per user happen for the news business? It doesn't, because there is technology involved over here. And in this case, you're seeing, as far as Indians are concerned, overwhelming majority of them are happy with password sharing. In the first place, so there's at best one account per family. That's what happens. So in that sense, revenues per user is a function of a different way of monetizing the user. You can have a similar situation even in the movie theaters. Movies are always famous. How come movie theaters are not making money? Because people are watching those movies on other platforms. So the idea is that when people are made to watch content on OTT, how is it that you can make sure that they pay for it? Maybe you do the TVOD model, or where you have a pay per rent kind of a model, where everything you watch is not based on a subscription, but you pay for a piece of content and you watch it if you want to watch it, or you can't watch it, so you can do that. So that is a business model that has to evolve. That's for the future. For now, Indians are extremely happy watching OTT content with password sharing, and they're clearly showing what they're watching with all the password sharing.
Okay. And now we know what they're watching with their password sharing, and those of course are the top 4 or 5 shows that people continue to consume in large numbers.
Yes.
We will of course bring you details of that. Krishna, thanks very much for joining with your inputs. Shifting focus now to an important story that we track, and that is the last date for filing individual income tax returns, or ITR, is 31st of July. Starting today, we want to answer all your queries, questions. As the last date approach every year, individuals are looking for an extension. We don't know whether that's going to happen or not. In this segment, we want to tell you all that you need to know about ITRs. Joining us is S. Sriram, who's a partner at Lakshmi Kumaran and Sridharan Attorneys. Sriram, thanks very much for taking time out. The first question that I have in mind, and perhaps in minds of many people who do not have a positive income, should they be filing ITR? Should everybody be filing ITRs, or only those who are earning a substantial sum of money or taking away some income home?
Any person who has a taxable income has to file an ITR. When I mean taxable income, there are slab rates that are prescribed for individuals. So anyone who has the income which is higher than the smallest slab will have to file a tax return. That's the primary category. The second and the other usual category is that when there is a businessman who is not a salaried employee but a businessman, but has losses in his business which he wants to carry forward and set off in the future period, he is also obligated to file his tax returns. These are the two primary categories of individuals who are required to file their tax returns.
All right. And what happens if I don't file it within the due date, which is 31st of July? What are the avenues for a person who's not filing it within the due date?
The consequences of not filing are, I would say, threefold. First, if there is a tax liability that arises out of the income that you have earned, you have to compensate the government in the form of an interest for the money that you had withheld. The second is that if there was a willful default in filing your tax return within the due date, there are penal consequences that might arise. And the third and most important, according to me, is that your own self-conscience. The tax that you pay is for the betterment of the country. You have an obligation as a citizen of this country to report to the government the monies that you have earned. That's the foremost requirement for which you have to file your tax return. The guilt feeling is the most important consequence of not filing your tax return on the due date. What if you don't file within the due date for whatever reasons it can be? You get a 6 months extended period of time by which you can file your tax return, which we generally refer to as a belated return. But if you skip the due date and file it within the belated return period, there are some consequences apart from the interest and penal liabilities. First is that the deductions that you are ordinarily entitled from your taxable income, say for example, purchase of a life insurance policy, etc., might not be available if you don't file your tax return within the due dates. Second, if you have a loss that you want to set off against any of your income, for example, you purchased a house in which you are staying, on which you have borrowed money and paid interest, the interest cost is allowed as a deduction against your salary income. That loss will not be available to be set off if you don't file your return within the 31st of July. And I don't see the due date extending this year. I don't see the government extending the due date this year. The database has been, the system for filing the return has been in place for quite some time. The forms have been released much in advance. The government has been repeatedly advertising taxpayers to file their return. I see no reason for the government to extend the due date for filing the return this year.
Okay. And perhaps one of the most basic questions for a person who's just entered workforce, who's just started earning, how do you really go about filing your income tax returns? What is the procedure like? What is the process like?
See, almost every one of us is tech savvy today. They carry a smartphone, have access to internet. Simple, just go into the website of the income tax department. They have provided detailed guidelines as to how you can, if you are just stepped into the job market and are having a minimum income and which is only sourced from your salary, you need not even approach a professional to file your tax returns. The income tax department has developed a system by which they have provided pre-filled forms. They have collected information from your employer. They have collected information from your bank about your income that you have earned. Prepared a pre-filled form which is stored in your login ID. You just have to verify these details, add any other details that you want to, any additional claims that you want to make, and then just press a button to file your return. It's almost like booking an Uber on your app. It has become that simple today.
Okay, it's as almost simple as booking an Uber or an Ola, but unfortunately financial knowledge information seems to percolate way slower in this country as opposed to a young person taking on to a new app or booking a cab. I hope it becomes as easy as that. I hope the financial information is taught in schools, it's taught in colleges, but that hasn't happened so far. So we are bringing you all that you need to know about filing your income tax returns. You can write to us, you can comment at the bottom of this video. We will put up those questions to experts like Mr. Sriram and get all your questions regarding income tax answered on this show. But with that, it's a wrap. Thanks very much for watching.
इंजीनियरिंग कर रहे हैं क्योंकि सभी लोग कर रहे हैं
Coaching is now starting from grade 3, 4, 5, 6.
होता जाने वाली बीच राह में आधे टेस्ट देके हैं सिलेक्शन की चाह में
ऑल इंडिया का बच्चा कोटा जाता है
This rat race is for rats, not for humans. So why should we even be a part of it?
The Rat Race. This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now. China won't let us rest easy on our borders, but they will keep flooding our markets. What does Xi Jinping really want?
I think he wants the Indian market, no doubt about it. It's really a matter of showing their dominance.
India's great Chinese conundrum.
Nobody can contain it. Not the United States, not China, not anybody else.
Frenemies. Streaming now.
इमरान अहमद खान नियाजी सबके दिल से हल्फ उठाता हूँ।
When Imran Khan came initially into politics, he thought his personal popularity would be sufficient for him. It didn't happen.
The retired military generals are openly saying that Imran Khan is a better choice.
Imran Khan may have bitten a bit too much, more than what he can chew.
Implosion. This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now. BrahMos, stealthy, lethal, precise. It flies at 3 times the speed of sound and cuts through a warship like a hot knife through butter. China's navy has threatened its neighbors, and they are turning to the BrahMos for protection. The warship killer. This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching News 9 Live. We begin with a major development in the case involving controversial Haryana MLA Gopal Kanda. The Delhi High Court has acquitted him in the 2012 suicide case of former air hostess Geetika Sharma, who was employed with his now defunct airline. Special Judge Vikas Dhul also acquitted co-accused Aruna Chadha in the case, saying that the prosecution failed to prove the charges beyond all reasonable doubts, essentially suggesting that there was a lack of evidence. Now, Geetika Sharma, a former air hostess with Mr. Kanda's MLDR Airlines, who was later elevated as a director of one of his companies, was found dead on the 5th of August in 2012 at her residence in the national capital. In her August 4th suicide note, she had alleged harassment by Gopal Kanda. Let's first listen in to what the lawyers and Mr. Kanda himself had to say, and we will also get you a ground report from outside the Rouse Avenue court where the hearing took place.
नहीं, कोर्ट ने बरी किया है हमारे को। अभी जजमेंट हमारे सामने आपके सामने आएगा, हम बता देंगे। हम टोटली इनोसेंट थे और कोर्ट ने भी यही कहा है कि हमारे खिलाफ कोई एविडेंस नहीं थी, इसलिए हमें बरी किया जाता है।
मेरे खिलाफ एक भी कोई एविडेंस, कोई कुछ नहीं था। ये सिर्फ बनाया गया था, और ये किस हिसाब से क्यों बनाया गया था, ये कोर्ट ने आज ये सब कुछ आपके सामने, आपको ऑर्डर पड़ेंगे आपके सामने।
5 अगस्त 2012 को 23 साल की गीतिका शर्मा, जो कि पेशे से एयर होस्टेस थी, उसकी खुदकुशी के मामले में मंगलवार को राउस एवेन्यू कोर्ट ने गोपाल कांडा और अरुणा चड्ढा को तमाम आरोपों से बरी कर दिया। इसके बाद जब गोपाल कांडा मीडिया के सामने आए तो उन्होंने कहा कि मेरे खिलाफ एक भी एविडेंस नहीं था, और ये बात आज कोर्ट में साबित हो गई। आपको बता दें कि 5 अगस्त 2012 को गीतिका दिल्ली में अशोक विहार इलाके में अपने घर में मृत पाई गई थी। सुसाइड किया था उसने, और अपने सुसाइड नोट में बाकायदा उसने गोपाल कांडा के उत्पीड़न का मामला बताते हुए खुद की खुदकुशी का उसका कारण बताया था। इस मामले में दिल्ली पुलिस ने जो मामला दर्ज किया था उसमें उसके खिलाफ आईपीसी की धारा 306, 506, 201, 120B, 468, 469, 471, 376 और 377 इन धाराओं में दिल्ली पुलिस ने मामला दर्ज किया था। हालांकि 376 जो कि रेप और 377 जो कि नेचुरल के लिए है, उसे दिल्ली हाई कोर्ट ने ड्रॉप कर दिया था। आपको बता दें कि 18 अगस्त को कई दिनों की लुका छुपी के बाद पुलिस ने गोपाल कांडा को गिरफ्तार किया था। हालांकि वो उसको तकरीबन 1.5 साल तक जेल में रहना पड़ा, सलाखों के पीछे रहना पड़ा। उसके बाद 2014 में तकरीबन 1.5 साल बाद रेगुलर बेल मिली। इस मामले में अगर देखें तो 11 साल लगे फैसला आने में, और जिस तरीके से उस वक्त बड़ा हाईलाइट हुआ था कि जो गोपाल कांडा थे वो हरियाणा में गृह राज्य मंत्री थे, और इतना लंबा वक्त जो है इस मामले के ट्रायल में चला। और लेकिन जब इसमें फ़ैसला आया है तो कोर्ट ने पाया है कि जो दोनों आरोपी हैं उनके खिलाफ इस तरीके के सबूत जो है वो अभियोजन पक्ष नहीं रख पाया, या यूँ कहें कि कोर्ट इस बात से कन्विंस नहीं हुआ कि जो आरोप हैं उनमें दम है। और उसी को देखते हुए गोपाल कांडा और चड्ढा दोनों को इस मामले में रिहा कर दिया गया है।
Well, so we heard the major stakeholders. Now let's take a closer look at the case. Geetika Sharma, a former air hostess with Mr. Kanda's MDLR Airlines, tragically died by suicide on the 5th of August 2012 at her residence in Delhi. Geetika was later made director of one of Kanda's corporate offices in Gurgaon. Now, Geetika died by suicide at her Ashok Vihar home in northwest Delhi on the 5th of August. In her two-page suicide note, Geetika alleged harassment by Gopal Kanda and one of his employees. Now, back then, Gopal Kanda was the Home Minister in the Hooda-led Haryana government. Gopal Kanda denied the charge but was later booked by Delhi police. And Gopal Kanda subsequently tendered his resignation when the row erupted. 6 months later, Geetika's mother also allegedly died by suicide. The Bharatiya Janata Party, then in the opposition, had held protests demanding his arrest. And as for Mr. Gopal Kanda himself, he is an influential politician and a businessman as well. He started out with small businesses in Haryana's Sirsa, and his elder brother, they achieved a rags to riches story in the real estate sector when the elder brother tried his hand at real estate when he moved to Gurgaon. Now, Gopal Kanda himself was associated with the Chautalas when the INLD was in power in Haryana, but then later on distanced himself when they lost power in the year 2005. Gopal Kanda later won as an independent MLA in the 2009 assembly election and became a minister in the Hooda-led cabinet. However, his fortunes took a downturn, a nosedive, after he got embroiled in the Geetika Sharma case. Now, following his arrest, Kanda resigned from his ministerial post, and in the year 2014, he launched his own HLP party and cozied up to the Bharatiya Janata Party, citing that his father's RSS connections were absolutely real, and he had in fact fought on a seat contesting for the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. He won the Sirsa seat in 2019, offering support to the BJP. But recently, his party was also part of the 38 identified NDA parties as well. You can get down in the comment section and help us understand if you think that the court's orders were correct or not. That's all the time we have for you. Keep watching News 9 Live.
Who are the sharks in that shark tank? And the shark is not always profit. The shark is not always market. The shark, more often than not, is not even your angel investor or the venture capitalist who has taken an early bet in investing in the business. The real shark tank is the purpose of every business's existence.
It's very simple. A founder really believes in something, he's passionate about it, he picks up his four people who are equally mad like him to kind of really start something.
It's an idea which tries to get a larger space in a relatively shorter amount of time.
Let's jog our memories back, 75 years or so. 1957, there was a group of 8 founders that later got referred to as the Traitorous 8. And why the Traitorous 8? Because these 8 people quit their existing jobs at Shockley International and started what perhaps in modern lexical could be referred to as the first startup of sorts, Fairchild Semiconductors. And arguably so, this was the first company that became a disruptor and an innovator and created a whole body of integrated circuits and transistor chips that we see the world of IT really riding on today.
The startup market historically has gone through many cycles, and there are cycles where cost of capital is low, funding is easily available, a lot of companies get funded.
They have to build a brand and have a brand recall, so branding becomes important. Once they have figured that out, then they have to start growing the top line, so revenues become important. And ultimately, to become a business, you have to be profitable, so profit become important.